Welcome to the Deep Dive. We sift through the sources for you, pull out the core insights, and bring them straight to your ears. Today, we're heading to Sri Lanka, to a place that's both geographically and, well, spiritually central. The Dambulla Cave Temple.
That's right. Also known as the Golden Temple of Dambulla. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
And not just any site, it's recognized as the largest and really the best preserved cave temple complex in the whole country.
Which is saying something, given Sri Lanka's rich history.
Absolutely. So our mission today is to figure out why. Why is it so well preserved? We're going to dive into the history, the incredible scale of the art, and just how these 5 main caves have lasted so long.
And remained active, that's key. It dates back to the 1st century BCE.
Exactly. How does something that old stays so pristine and, still function as a major religious center? I mean, when you first approach it, the scale just hits you. This massive rock, it towers 160 meters, what's that, about 520 feet, straight up from the plains.
It's imposing. You realize immediately it's not just a few caves.
No, it's like an entire ecosystem of history and faith carved into the landscape. But maybe the most striking thing is just how old the human connection is here.
It is. Okay, let's unpack that, because the history here actually goes back further than the temple itself.
Before the 1st century BCE.
Oh, way before. What's really fascinating is how the human story layers onto the geology. You can trace people using these rock formations back into prehistory. There are burial sites nearby at a place called Ibankatua. They show prehistoric Sri Lankans were using these shelters maybe 2,700 years ago.
2,700 years. So long before Buddhism even arrived in Sri Lanka.
Exactly. People knew this was a special sheltered place way back then. It was already significant before it became a temple.
Okay, so it was a known landmark.
Yeah.
And then comes the key historical moment, the founding story involving a king.
Precisely. The traditional founding story points to the 1st century BCE, King Valagamba of Anuradhapura. He's the one credited with converting the caves into a proper temple.
And the context is pretty dramatic, right? He wasn't exactly having an easy time.
Yeah. Not at all. He was on the run, basically, fleeing South Indian usurpers who'd taken his capital, and he apparently sought refuge right here in these caves.
For how long?
For 15 years, according to the tradition. A long time to be in hiding.
Wow. 15 years. So after he finally reclaimed his throne,
he came back here and built the temple. It was an act of thankful worship, a clear link between his personal history, the kingdom's survival, and this sacred place.
So it's more than just royal money. It's personal, almost like an offering for his return. You have to think that story shaped how people saw the site afterwards.
Absolutely. It ties the physical caves to the survival of the kingdom itself. It makes Dambulla a monument to resilience, to royal legitimacy. And importantly, the royal support didn't just stop there.
Right. That continuous patronage seems crucial for why it's so well preserved.
Definitely. It wasn't a one-off thing. By the 11th century, Dambulla was a major religious center. Then you have King Nisanka Malala of Polonnaruwa in 1190.
What did he do?
He made significant upgrades. He gilded the cave interiors, hence the name Golden Temple sometimes, and added about 70 Buddha statues.
70 statues, that's a lot.
A huge investment. And even much later, in the 18th century, the Kingdom of Kandy was still involved, doing major restoration work, especially on the paintings.
So you have this thread of royal attention across almost 2,000 years. Kings from different capitals, different eras, all investing here.
Which explains why the place is just packed with art. The sheer volume is hard to grasp.
Yeah, the numbers are pretty wild. The murals alone, what was it, 2,100 square meters?
Yeah, that's around 23,000 square feet. Think about it, it's like painting the ceilings and walls of almost 2 Olympic swimming pools. It's just everywhere you look.
An overwhelming amount of art. And then the statues. You said 153 Buddhas.
153 Buddhas, yeah. But it's not just Buddhas. And this is where Dambulla gets really interesting culturally.
You mean the other statues, the kings?
Yes, there are 3 statues of Sri Lankan kings, which makes sense given the patronage history we just talked about.
Right.
But there are also 4 statues of gods and goddesses. Hindu deities specifically.
Okay, that's the point that always raises questions. Why Hindu gods in a major Buddhist temple?
It's a great question. It points to this synthesis that happened in Sri Lankan religious life. You find Vishnu and Ganesha depicted here.
Vishnu and Ganesha.
Yeah.
Prominently.
Yes. Vishnu in particular has a really strategic placement in the first cave. It shows how these traditions weren't always seen as totally separate. Hindu deities were often woven into the Buddhist worldview as like powerful protectors, guardians of the temple or the Dharma itself.
So it's less about doctrinal conflict and more about cultural blending, a kind of shared cosmology.
Exactly. It tells you a lot about how religion actually worked on the ground on the island. It wasn't always rigid boundaries.
Fascinating. And those murals we mentioned, the massive painted surfaces, what are they showing? What's the main story?
They're basically visual scripture. They focus on the big moments in the life of Gautama Buddha, key scenes.
Like what?
You see vivid depictions of his struggle with the demon Mara, that moment of temptation right before enlightenment. And then, crucially, scenes of his first sermon.
The core narrative.
Right. The paintings make sure that the whole arc of the Buddha's journey is right there, surrounding the worshiper as they move through the caves.
Okay, let's imagine we are that worshiper, or just a visitor. You're approaching the caves. What's the journey like?
Well, first, you climb. It's a gentle slope up the rock, not too strenuous. But as you go up, the view opens up behind you.
What can you see?
You get this amazing panorama of the plains stretching out, and you can actually see the Sigiriya rock fortress in the distance.
Sigiriya, how far is that?
About 19 kilometers away. So you get this sense of connection to other major historical sites nearby. Then you reach the main terrace, and there are the 5 main caves tucked under this huge sweep of overhanging rock.
Right, 5 caves, each with its own character, developed over different times. Can you give us a quick tour, maybe the highlight or the most surprising thing in each one?
Sure. Let's start with Cave 1. It's called Devarajalina,
Which means?
Cave of the Divine King. And the name fits because the dominant thing in there is this absolutely massive reclining Buddha, 14 meters long.
14 meters, that's nearly 46 feet, carved right out of the rock.
Hewn directly from the cave wall itself. It's breathtaking. And we know it's old. There's a Brahmi inscription near the entrance from the 1st century BCE recording the monastery's founding.
Wow, actual physical proof dating it back that far.
Exactly. But the surprising detail, remember we talked about Vishnu?
Yeah.
Well, right near the head of this giant reclining Buddha, there's a statue of Vishnu.
Right at the Buddha's head. Wow,
Tradition says Vishnu used his divine powers to actually create the caves in the first place. So his placement there kind of acknowledges him as the divine originator or protector of the site, even before the Buddhist dedication. It visually confirms that synthesis we discussed.
That's incredible. Okay, on to Cave 2, the biggest one.
Right. Maharajalina, the cave of the great kings. And it really earns the name. It's huge, 52 meters, that's like 170 feet from end to end.
And presumably full of kings.
Oh.
Or at least statues of them.
Both, kind of. It contains statues of the 2 most important royal patrons we mentioned, King Vatagamani Abhaya, the founder from the 1st century BCE.
And King Nisankamala from the 12th century, the one who did the gilding.
Exactly. Their presence really anchors the history. And yes, it's packed with Buddhas too, 16 standing, 40 seated, just a huge concentration.
What's the quirky detail here?
Well, there are 2. First, there's a small dagoba inside the cave.
A stupa. Inside a cave.
Yeah, a dome-shaped shrine, usually containing relics. It's quite striking to see one indoors like that. And second, there's a spring. Water drips constantly from a crack in the ceiling.
Natural spring water.
Yep. And local belief holds that the water has healing powers. People collect it.
Huh. And the paintings in this cave?
They're extensive, mostly from the 18th century. They show Buddha's life story, Queen Mahamaya's dream, the temptation by Mara again, but also, significantly, scenes from Sri Lankan history itself. Again, that blending of the sacred and the national narrative.
That theme just keeps coming back, the temple walls telling both stories. What about Cave 3?
Cave 3 is the Maha Alutvihara, the Great New Monastery. This one is really important if you want to understand Sri Lankan art history.
How so?
Because it's a prime example of the Kandy style. The paintings and sculptures are mostly from the 18th century during the reign of King Kirti Sri Rajasinghe. Very distinct, quite ornate.
So it's like a time capsule of 18th century Kandian art.
Pretty much. It's incredibly well preserved. You find 50 Buddha statues in here. And tying it all together, there's also a statue of the patron himself, King Kirti Sri Rajasinghe.
Making sure everyone knows who funded this phase.
It's a statement, for sure. The king isn't just a benefactor, he's part of the sacred space, ensuring its continuation.
Okay, so we have these incredible caves, centuries of art, constant use, which makes the fact that it's the best preserved ancient site in Sri Lanka even more amazing. How did they manage the conservation? Especially since it's not a ruin, it's still a working monastery.
That's the real challenge, right? Balancing preservation with active worship. There were some earlier efforts like cleaning the murals back in the 1960s.
But the major modern approach came later. with UNESCO involvement.
Yes, the big push was the joint UNESCO Cultural Triangle project. That ran from 1982 to 1996.
The Cultural Triangle, it was the Sri Lankan government initiative to manage key heritage sites.
Exactly. And their combined strategy for Dambulla was quite careful. They realized the site hadn't really been altered significantly since the 1930s. So the focus shifted.
Away from heavy restoration.
Away from large-scale cleaning, definitely. The goal became maintaining the integrity of what was already there, not trying to make it look brand new or guess at some original state.
Just stabilize it. Keep it from deteriorating further.
Precisely. The main focus was on those 18th century murals, because they make up something like 80% of all the paintings you see today.
80%. Wow, so preserving those was key.
Absolutely. So instead of, scrubbing them down, they focused on remedial stuff. Gently consolidating flaking plaster, dealing with moisture issues where possible, minimal intervention.
And what about managing the impact of, well, people? Worshippers, visitors.
That was crucial too. They improved the infrastructure around the caves. Things like renovating the traditional hand-cut paving stones inside the complex to control dust and wear.
Subtle things that make a difference.
Right. And installing modern, low-impact lighting. Enough to see the art properly, but designed not to damage the pigments over time. And importantly, keeping new visitor facilities like the museum, restrooms, etc., well away from the caves themselves.
Smart. Reduce the foot traffic and environmental stress right at the historic core.
Exactly. It was about protecting the delicate balance, allowing the rituals to continue while safeguarding the art and architecture for the long term under its UNESCO designation.
So they weren't just preserving paint, they were preserving a living tradition, a whole historical narrative embedded in the rock.
That sums it up perfectly. The conservation strategy really respected the site's dual role as both ancient monument and active sacred space.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you listening? The Dambulla Cave Temple really gives you this incredible window into how history, faith, and art just wove themselves together over 2,000 years. You see the echoes of prehistoric people, then this dramatic story of a king finding refuge and giving thanks, leading to centuries of royal patronage. And the result is Sri Lanka's best preserved ancient monument. An amazing survival story.
It truly is.
But maybe the most profound thing to take away is that constant blending we saw, especially in those later 18th century murals. They show Buddha's life, yes, but they also show key moments from Sri Lankan history.
Right.
Exactly. It suggests that, for the people who commissioned and saw this art, the spiritual journey and the national story weren't separate things. They were part of one continuous sacred narrative. So here's a final thought for you. When you look at ancient sites around the world, how often do you find that line between the sacred and the national identity drawn quite so clearly, so physically, right there in the art itself? That seamless connection you can literally touch at Dambulla. Well, that's something to think about.